So good morning. My name is Diane LeGray. I work at UCSD and I'm one of the members on the work group that is working with Region 6 Careers and Student Affairs Month. So thank you for being here. We'd love for you to put in the chat where you are calling in from your campus, and if you want your title, that would be great. So we're going to start off and have our panelists introduce themselves. I'll just call on you just to make it a little bit easier. And we'll start with Andrew. And I apologize, I didn't say what session this is. It's our new professionals panel on finding your why. So Andrew.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. Andrew Masakasana, pronouns he, him, el, and I currently serve as program coordinator at the Cross Cultural Center at UC Davis.
Thank you, Andrew. Sonia.
Good morning, everyone. I am Sonia Garcia Velez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the assistant director for College Core here at UC Riverside.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonia. Belinda.
Morning, everyone. My name is Belinda Navarrete. I'm the coordinator of outreach and educational partnerships here at Crafton Hills College. And I build and strengthen relationships with K-12 partners and facilitate the matriculation process for dual enrollment and students of the community. I recently graduated from the University of Redlands with my master's degree in counseling and a PPS credential.
Thank you, Belinda. Yasleen.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Yasleen Alonso. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I serve currently as the program manager for the financial wellness program here at UC Riverside.
Thank you. And Andres.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andres Alvira, and I use the he, him, his pronouns, and I'm currently serving as the orientation coordinator in new student and family programs at San Jose State University.
Awesome. Thank you. If you're just joining us, welcome. It's our first Region 6 Careers and Student Affairs Month panel. We're super excited that you're here. Put in the chat where you're from, and if you want to put your title, that'd be awesome too. So the format today is we have some scripted questions that we're going to ask our panelists. They will answer those, and then near the end, we're going to save time for all of you to be able to ask questions that you have of our new professionals. So our first question is, how is your transition from being a graduate student to being a new professional in a full-time job? And whoever wants to take that on first, please chime in.
I can go ahead and go. So while I was a full-time student pursuing my master's degree, I also held a full-time position here at Crafton Hills College, had an internship for counseling, and also had to care for my family. So that was quite difficult. So transitioning from juggling multiple roles to focusing on motherhood and my new promotion, I think that was like the most rewarding and fulfilling to be able to focus the majority of my time on my work as a higher education professional.
I can go. So for me, I didn't mention in my intro, but I also recently graduated. So I recently graduated from SDSU's. We have a very long acronym, but it's our student affairs program. And I think to also add some context to my transition. So I moved from Southern California, thank you, Leslie, to Northern California. So I'm like born and raised LA, OC. And then during the pandemic, I went to San Diego back and forth because we had like our school online. So the transition has been not only just like transitioning to full-time, also in a new area, and also living on my own again. So I think overall just getting used to not only like the work life that I have, but outside of that, what does it mean to like see my friends in like Sacramento, Bay Area, and then also getting used to the role I have. So I feel like the transition has been very like moving from like place to place and just getting like my mind shift from being like that full-time student now to having like all those 40 hours dedicated to my role throughout the week.
Yeah, so for me, I would say very similarly to Andrew, I also graduated from the same master's program back at the height of the pandemic in spring of 2020. which, as y'all remember, was a very different time in the world where things just kind of felt, like they were flipped on the top of their heads. So it was definitely a very unique time to be transitioning in a role where things were fully virtual at that point. So I think contextually, that my first full professional year was pretty much all online. So I think now, as still a new professional, I feel like I'm almost still learning my role as we kind of return back to how things used to look like pre-pandemic.
I can go next. To echo what Andres shared, I also graduated from my master's program in 2020. So I graduated from UCLA in their student affairs program. As a graduate student, I was a full-time student. I also held a part-time internship, and I was also a full-time parent. So I was juggling all of those different roles. And then when I graduated, I didn't get this role. It took me about almost a year, to be honest, to get the role that I currently have now. And when I was first hired, it was in the summer and they were still operating remotely. But maybe about 2 months into my role, we transitioned into a hybrid schedule. But I would say it's been a learning curve, just understanding more of how the financial aid operates. But I've been really lucky to have a supportive supervisor, and everyone has been really great and supporting me whenever I do have questions.
For me, I just recently finished my master's program here at UC Riverside, the Higher Ed Admin and Policy program, and I was a full-time student and a full-time employee here on campus. And so the work-life balance definitely was a struggle, just because, as soon as I finished work at 4 o'clock, it was like go to class, find a room, do online class. And I don't have a family, but I do care for my parents. And so they unfortunately had a lot of health issues last fall as I started my program, and that was very hectic for me in that first quarter, but it definitely has gotten better now. I did have the unwavering support of all of my colleagues. My supervisor at the time was super supportive whenever I needed the time off. And so now in this new role, because I graduated in June, I started this role in late August. And so it has been a great transition. I work in the same division, but it was a promotion. And so I work with the same folks that support me in that journey. And so it hasn't been a rough transition. Things that come with running a new program like the College Core grant that I work with.
Great, thank you all. We'll move on to our next question. The title of the session is New Professionals Panel, Finding, Navigating, and Embracing the Why. So if you all can speak to your why about what made you seek a profession in student affairs.
So as a first generation college student, I had very little knowledge about higher education systems. So I didn't really know about community college, UCs, CSUs, or even private institutions. So working in higher education, had the opportunity to learn about services and other opportunities that are available for students. I grew up in the Inland Empire and had very little knowledge about the community college system that wasn't really shared in high school. That was almost frowned upon. So in my current role, I like to shed light on the opportunities here at the community college system and how students can reach their higher educational goals, and also think about career education programs.
I feel like my why, and I don't want to get too much because I feel like it'd be like when like folks ask like, well, how'd you get into student affairs? Like, what's your why? I feel like that answer could be like so long, but I feel like to kind of like summarize and be concise, it really started maybe like my second, third year. It was a conversation I actually had with one of my supervisors, and I thought, I really enjoy like these roles I was doing, and I think like being on a college campus, I always enjoy the fact I like walk around, see folks studying, hanging out. I really enjoy just that feeling, that environment. So I thought, when I was a senior, like I want to be in these roles. I want to continue staying on college campuses. I think beyond that, just being able to grow my students. I think that continues to be my why, being a lifelong learner and unlearner as well, as I go through my career. Those are some of the whys that I have.
I can go next. For my why, I discovered this the last year of my undergraduate career. I was on a pre-law path for a very long time. And going into my 4th year in undergrad at UC San Diego, I realized that working with undocumented students and working with the undocumented community didn't just have to be in the courtroom. And so as a documented professional herself, I really enjoyed the role that I held throughout my undergrad years. So I was at the Cross Cultural Center, at Spaces, I was at the Raza Resource Centro, and I really honed into that passion and that labor of love of all the folks that gave so much to me when I was in undergrad and through all those struggle years, that I decided that I could give back to my community in that way. And so not only did I switch career paths, I also moved back to the Inland Empire because this is where I grew up. And for a long time, I thought I was going to live in San Diego County. And so my why really focused on, like, part of it was my identity and giving back, but also making sure that I was able to come back to my community here in the IE because I saw that there was a high need for our undocumented folks here.
Andreas or Yasleen?
Yeah, I guess for me, I would definitely say my involvement helped project my interest in joining the field. I was definitely involved in a lot of different things in my undergrad campus, like student government and orientation. And I think I really felt the impact of being a leader on campus. And I think for me, I really wanted to help shape student leader experiences and help with their training and development. And so I think for me, that definitely informs a lot of what I do currently in my role, working with orientation leaders and helping them put on large programs. So I think for me, I understand like the impact can also be, more individualized, but also on a larger scale with the type of programming that we as, student affairs professionals have the capacity to put on. So that would be my why.
For my why, so I'm also a first generation college graduate, and I was also a student parent. So my way in getting involved on campus was holding more of internships or jobs. But I was really, really fortunate to have really great mentors along the way to help me navigate, um, the college system. And so that's what I wanted to do as well. I'm also an Inland Empire native, and I really wanted to give back to my community. And I enjoyed being in a college setting, and I would just like to be a mentor and help other students, such as myself, help navigate and reach their potential during their time as in college.
Great, thank you all. For those of you that are just coming in, welcome. We appreciate you being here. We have some questions that our panelists are answering, and then we will open it up to all of you to ask what questions you have. If you have questions, you'll put them in the chat, so start thinking about your questions now. This question is for Belinda. How have you applied student development theory in your current position? And if you can talk about if there's been any challenges in applying what you learned in graduate school to your job.
Yeah, so I've applied person environment theories by creating innovative ways to impact student growth and retention, such as planning recruitment activities and creating programming for first year student experience programs. I've done a lot of research, and I believe a sense of community supports like persistence and a sense of belonging. So that's been like a big mission for me to start first year experience programs. My supervisor and I are really going to work on that, since our institution does not have any student experience programs. So some of the challenges is, finding funding for that. And having other people from different departments to support us, since we are a fairly small department here on our campus.
Great, thank you, Belinda. Let me look at the next question. The next question is for Andrew and Andreas. What is one of the most significant lessons you have learned thus far in your experience as a new professional in student affairs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like one of the big lessons I've learned is being okay for like new challenges, new experiences. So for me, I did work at the Native Resource Center as the GA during my time in grad school. And then now, as a program coordinator, I not only oversee Native programming, but I also oversee African diaspora programming. So for me, working with African diaspora students during orientation, housing, I rely on those experiences and also being able to tap into my students, into the community, to be able to do that learning on my own, outside research, outside readings. A lot of it has been just continuing to learn. I think the big thing as well is continuously learning from my students. Like, yes, I'm teaching them, I'm, giving them my experience, but also like their experiences. They have so much knowledge. Some of my students are already fourth years. So they've been on campus for a year now, post-pandemic, and then also have that experience online or even pre-pandemic as well. So for me, being able to get those experiences, lessons from them as well, are some of the things that I've learned throughout my time so far at UC Davis.
Yeah, I think for me, it definitely took me a while to get to this point. I think as many have mentioned, even as a new professional, you're still learning and growing. And even as you continue on in your career, you're always going to continue to learn and grow as well. But for me, I think a significant takeaway was really just learning not to take things personally. I think especially as a new professional, we're very caught up in first impressions, wanting to make a really good impact and be best friends with everyone. So I think for me, something that I learned is that it's okay to have conflict, in the workplace. It's natural, especially when you're working with different departments, to not see eye to eye sometimes and really have to try to understand folks' different perspectives. And so I think for me, just being okay with that discomfort and also recognizing that sometimes things just don't have to be taken that personally. Sometimes it's just, it is what it is. It is what it is. And I think, I think it took time for me to get to that point and be okay with that. And so I think that's a really big lesson that I learned my first couple of years in the profession.
Great, thank you. That's awesome. Our next question is sorry, I'm working from home today, so and having two screens is making it a little challenging. For Belinda, Andrew, and Sonia, what practice and or philosophy of life best informs your work?
I believe as a first generation professional, my philosophy is to equip, embrace, and encourage students of diverse backgrounds to achieve their academic and career goals. There's a commitment to creating efficient strategies and programs that promote growth and achievement. So the many relationships that students develop both inside and outside of the classroom are really essential to their achievement. My method is guided by the person-centered approach, which focuses on the elements of care, support, and unconditional positive regard.
For me, I think that my best philosophy of life, and really it's simple, is to empower and uplift my community and the students. I think that working on campus, I have a job because of my students, and so it is really important that you meet them where they're at and that you care for them in that moment, wherever it is that they're at, whether it's at their best, at their lowest, or even throughout their whole journey. For me, knowing that that's what was done for me, it's worked, right? I really am open to sharing my narrative with my students as a first generation undocumented Latina in the Inland Empire. Like, I'm able to connect with my students so much because of those things. And I've learned that sharing my story allows them to do the same in our spaces and in the community, that helps them connect with other people and network. And so not only is that a best practice for the work that I do and the students that I work with, but I also think that goes with the workplace, right? I'm a very firm believer that you need to have strong staff morale in your team in order to thrive, in order to give back to your students, to make sure that you're not burning yourself out while trying to provide the best support that you can for them. And so informing that way when I build my team, making sure that the way that I work with my students is also the way that I care for my staff is really what has led me to work in some of the best teams that I have seen on this campus and be successful as a professional, as a colleague, and a mentor and mentor for our students. And I firmly believe that once that's applied and really believing and valuing in one another is what has led me to be successful to the point where I'm right now.
Awesome. Thank you all. That's really great. This is one of our last questions before we open it up to you all for any questions that you have of our panelists. But specifically for Andreas and Yasleen, what was the most challenging or surprising part of adjusting to your current position as a new professional? And what have you learned about yourself during this process?
I would say one of the most challenging parts of my current position is learning what my supervisory style looks like. So this is the first position I've held where I actually do supervise a student. I've had roles more in an advisory capacity, but I think with this one, my student, she's great, but there have been times where I've had to just let her know what she has to be doing a little bit better. But I think it was just getting comfortable with conflict and bringing that to her attention. And I think what I learned was that I brought this up to my supervisor, and she told me that part of being a really great supervisor is that you have to let your students know what they can do better. Like, yes, it is an uncomfortable discussion to have, but at the end of the day, it's a way where they can improve, and they can't improve if you don't have those conversations. And so I think that's something, it was really wide opening to me. And I think now it's just, again, just leaning more into the discomfort because that's how growth happens.
Yeah, I think for me, a challenge that I am still in the process of overcoming, I think, is learning how to be your own best advocate. And especially if you ever are interested in obtaining higher roles in the profession, I think the higher up you get, right, the more you're relying on yourself to really advocate for things that you need in the department or that you need to really carry out the duties of your job. And so especially in my case where I don't have a direct supervisor at the moment, I think it really does put me in that kind of uncomfortable place of, speaking up when I need something or if things aren't going to work, like really vocalizing that to our higher up. So it's definitely something that takes time to get to. And I think under certain circumstances, you're probably needing to do that more so than others. But I think just being okay with saying what you need and asking for help is going to be extremely critical as a new professional.
Great, thank you both. That's and advocating for yourself is really important at any level. That's the reality of being your roles, right? And then at some point you'll be advocating for your staff, advocating for your department. So that's really important. So Jen Maharo has been putting questions in the chat. And so if you all have questions for our panelists, they will end with some words of wisdom. But if you have questions for our panelists, please feel free to put those in the chat. And Jen will be sharing those with our panelists.
We did just get a question. So this question is, what is one of the best strategies or approaches you have used in a current or past role that has helped with student outreach?
Yeah, that's a great question. Currently doing that for our big programs for the spring quarter. So we're already planning couple quarters in advance. Something I'm getting used to. So little context, I was part of the semester system pretty much my whole college career. So now I'm moving the quarter system. It's only the end of week 3, but they're 10 weeks, so they are going pretty fast. So I think also being a new professional and being new on campus, I feel there's a few strategies that I've been using. Number one is definitely going to events, utilizing the fact that I've been able to get on campus more. So we do have, I think I'm on campus around 4 days and then 1 day virtual, but there have been times where all 5 days I've been on campus. So being able to go to events, club and org meetings, doing info interviews with different folks on campus, really tapping into different networks. And then another thing is being able to ask for help. So my supervisor has been on campus now for around 8 years. So her network has expanded all throughout their time at UC Davis. So being able to not only tap into different networks across our campus, but also my supervisor. And then lastly, just the students, getting their feedback. A lot of times with my students, I'm just asking them questions, or our other scholar staff. We have a team of 20 and it's still growing. So we do have a lot of students ask questions and get their feedback. And then we have students coming in our center. So just being able to hold those conversations to really see how we can improve. I think just improving in the moment as well. So come next quarter, come the other quarter, we're finding new ways to continue that student outreach.
For me, it's been really important to build strong relationships with our K through 12 partners and have a presence on their campus. So some of the things that we're doing is we're conducting a pilot program for an event that we're going to be hosting on our campus, where we're inviting all of the seniors to attend as like a pep rally, get them excited. We have about 40% of their students that come to our campus. And we want to increase that number. We've also been working with a platform that's called Starfish, where we can have virtual kiosks for prospective students, and we can track their process from the time they've expressed interest to see if they successfully enroll. We also use that as a system to send messages, text messages and emails to students as follow-up. We have to-do items where we explain the steps to enrollment, and we can invite them to events here on our campus. So that's been super useful because we can track to see how many students have successfully enrolled.
Does anyone else want to answer that question? Okay. I'll toss out a question as we're waiting for other questions to come in. Generally, as a new employee on a campus, you will have a probation period, right? And so you want to do well, you want to perform. How do you balance performance and not burning out? Especially as a new professional.
I can take a stab at this one. I think everything that Diane mentioned is very, very true. As new professionals, you kind of want to jump in, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go, put in long hours, long days. And I think, or would recommend, right, just really taking the time to just kind of slowly ease into it. I recognize those feelings, and I was definitely there myself at one point. But I think sustainably, it will help you in the long run to kind of ease into the role and really preserve that energy, because there are going to be times where you'll be really busy and you'll be, wishing that you took advantage of, your downtime or the time that you did have to, kind of ease into it. So I would say, try your best to not overwhelm yourself. It does take time for you to fully grasp your role, and there really is no expectation that that needs to happen overnight, because it is a process. So I guess my one takeaway would be, don't overexert yourself, really understand your limits, and really try your best to start off those healthy boundaries from the get-go.
Great advice. Does anyone else want to answer that as well? Go ahead, Jen.
We do have one other question. Do any of you have professional mentors or advisors, supporters? And how has your relationship evolved now that you are a professional? It's a great question.
I can take this question. A lot of my current friends and really close mentors and femtors are actually people that I worked with when I was an undergrad. And so the assistant director from the Cross Cultural Center, even like Willie or other folks that I know that are part of NASPA on the larger scale. I think our relationship evolved really seamlessly, I would say, because I was always that wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. Like I always wanted to let people know how thankful I was for their support. And so I would always just like let people know, hey, this is what I'm up to now. I would love to just, Zoom chat, whatever, to catch up and just see how you're doing. And so it was always this mutual relationship of not only did I want to share what I was doing, but I was also really interested in what they were doing, right? Like there was a very personal and close bond that I held with all of them. And I've been so thankful that even now, like 5+ years later, I'm still able to just reach out whenever I have a question, or if I know that they're moving, like I want to check in and see how they're doing. And even on the professional level, there's this very solid like bond of respect. For a long time, I always thought that I was here and that they were here because they were the ones that were trying to uplift me when I was, a younger student. But when I became their colleague, it was just like, oh, you have resources, I have resources. Let's network, let's do something, right? And it was never something about looking down on me because I was younger or because I was newer. It was this very mutual respect. And so I think if you can establish those relationships and really maintain that mutual, value for that friendship and take that into a professional realm where you can do great things with the resources and networks that you both have, that it really leads to successful relationships both in and outside of the workplace.
Great, thank you, Sonia. Would anyone else like to answer that question?
Yeah, I really like this question. Yes, please stay in touch with like mentors, femtors. I agree with Sonia, like the relationships have evolved. I think recently I was talking to one of my mentors and friends, and he's like, you know what, like I want to sign up for this, I might need your guidance. And it kind of like I thought to myself, wow, like my like mentor friend wants like my help. I was like, wow, like things have changed. But I think it's also the realization that like we are in these different roles, and folks are like noticing, and yes, there are times where I still am like connecting with like my enough mentor. I'm like, hey, like this thing happened, like I had this student, like can you like help me, like kind of like let's talk about it. So there have been times where I have like debriefed or just like shared, and my mentors have helped me with that. But I think overall, like yes, like relationships do evolve over time. Like the things you do talk about do change because you are in different roles, you are experiencing different things, new areas. Like when I moved, I think I talked to another mentor. I was like, hey, how do you like, make new friends? Because being in a new area, you have to, yes, I do have a couple of friends that live close by, but overall, like it's different than being in San Diego, Orange County, LA, where I had like more friends over there, family. So it was also working through that transition. So I think, yeah, being able to stay in touch with folks over time really does help. And also on the flip side, like if you like have mentees, femtees as well, like also continue to stay in touch with them as, throughout time, because even one of my femtees, she's ready to apply to grad school, so it's like kind of full circle where now I'm the one on the other side, kind of coaching and just supporting her and through that journey as well.
Anyone else like to answer? We have another question in the chat as well. Okay, so next question. In some spaces, it is intimidating to work with folks who are more seasoned or experienced in their fields than this person is. What advice do you have for new professionals who are learning to use their voice in these types of spaces?
Who'd
I
like to
think
jump in first? Belinda, go
Oh.
for it.
I think something to always keep in mind is that we were all once new professionals, right? That didn't know how to do the job, had to learn how to get trained. So I believe creating relationships and, just really getting to know the person, asking for training opportunities. I think that's really helped me, like building relationships, nurturing those relationships, giving people, kudos like, hey, I really love the way you did that. Can you walk me through how you, organize that, or how you thought about, creating this programming? So I think like seeking mentorship, you also have to take initiative and reach out and step out of your comfort zone. Many of the times, people who are seasoned want to teach others. They're great mentors, and that's why they're in these spaces. So, like I said, we were all new once, and we can ask for help.
Um, I think this is a really great question, and something I definitely felt coming into this role. So, this is my first time working in a financial aid setting, financial aid office setting, and I remember feeling very intimidated because I felt everybody else was more seasoned. They knew how to do all of this. They understood the jargon and the process that happens. But I learned that just having a conversation with them, you learn that they're still learning through some of it, so they can be 10 plus years into their field and they're still learning. And I think that definitely helped me not view myself as like I don't know what I'm doing, but we're all learning in this journey. We all want to do the right job and support our students as best as we can. So just having those conversations with them, asking them to I love to ask anyone really, like, how they got into this field. What was it that motivated them? How was it in the beginning? Just taking in those lessons, and again, echoing what Belinda said, in this field, you have to continue making those relationships even after you're in undergrad or graduate school. It continues in the workplace, and so just being comfortable and reaching out and maintaining those relationships.
Okay, let's see, we have another question that just came in. Oh, okay, actually it was a comment. Let's see, I have one more. This person, let's see, question was answered, how to figure out how did you figure out which section of student affairs you wanted to go into for your career? That's a good question too.
Yeah, I would say for those of you that might still be exploring different functional areas, that's totally okay. And even as a grad student, I would encourage you to explore different areas that maybe you haven't had direct experience in, or just, really curious about. And I think that's really just the beauty of being in grad school, is getting some opportunities to practice and just get experience in those different functional areas. But I would say if you're definitely interested in more of like the programming area, I would encourage you to consider maybe opportunities in student activities or student life, orientation. Whereas if you might be, more interested in like an individualized setting, I could encourage you to consider maybe like academic advising positions, maybe like advisor roles in some capacity. So I think it might require you to maybe put some thought into what you enjoyed most as an undergrad student, or what really interests you, or what kind of impact you may want to have, as well as the student population that you are thinking about serving as well. I think can kind of help stir you in that right direction. But I think it's totally okay to still be interested and open to exploring other areas too.
What really helped me was the professional development opportunities. I started off as a student worker in undergraduate admissions, and as a professional, I started working there as well at UCR. And there was an opportunity for a professional academic advising certification course. And I worked with my supervisor, was able to complete that course, and realized I wanted to go into counseling. So that's how I found, what I wanted to do. I seeked professional opportunities so I can learn more about myself. So that's how I landed in my realm.
Any other responses? I have one more question. Okay, so Diana said that Andres mentioned having difficulty when working with other campus departments. Have others had similar experiences? What was the approach taken to resolve these differences, and what are some strategies that helped? Has anybody ever really had issues working with cross-departmental?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I would say that especially with depending on the type of work that you do. For me in particular, I work in orientation, so I'm working with pretty much every department on campus, working with our academic affairs teams. And I think really sometimes that we don't see eye to eye because we're just working on two different landscapes. So I think what has helped has really just been opening up a conversation with those departments or areas, and especially relying on maybe higher ups in your division or your area to help advocate for some of those needs or push back when needed. I think there are a lot of folks that are helpful in your corner and that are willing to help champion some of the causes that are in best interests of the students and the larger community. So I think really just being open to having that conversation and sharing where you're coming from. But I think also trying your best to recruit support from other folks that can be in your corner to help advocate for you or to really share the value of the ideas that you want to bring to the table.
I like to call us playing nice in the sandbox. Has any other of our panelists had challenges with this area, with this question? Okay, well, let's move on. For the participants who shared questions, we really appreciate it. And this panel again was kind of finding your why. And so we have one last question for our panelists. We know folks have 10 a.m. as do some of our panelists. So we want to be mindful of your time. So our last question for you is, what words of wisdom or what words of advice do you have for new professionals in terms of determining, and I would also say maintaining their why? We know that student affairs can sometimes be a thankless position. So how do you determine your why and how do you maintain your why? Yasleen, let's start with you.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And I think I've had those moments as well where I'm like, why did I do this? Uh, why did I choose this profession? But I would say as I would say just kind of remembering, going back to the beginning, that's kind of where I go back. I go back to a specific moment in time in my undergraduate experience where I was really lucky to just have the mentors and the experiences that I had. And that slowly helps me get clarity on my why again and remembering that. There was another part to the question. Can you remind me real quick? I think it was maintaining your why.
Just determining and maintaining your why.
Yeah, Yeah, I would just say go back to the beginning, remember the specific moments or experiences that you had that led you to want to be in the student affairs profession. I would say also leaning into your mentors, right? Having those conversations, because I think everyone has probably experienced that moment where we are often questioning why we chose the field, but yeah, I would go with that. And then just with real quick with words of wisdom, I would say give yourself compassion. I think that's something that I always try to tell myself as well when I feel like maybe I'm not doing enough for my students or doing the best that I could, is that we can only do so much. And, we have to give ourselves grace and compassion because we're still learning and we always want to do the best that we can for our students.
Great, thank you. Belinda?
I think for me, my why will always be our students. We're here for our students and because of our students. So every time you, receive an email or a letter of recommendation, I think those are our whys and why we keep going. We value higher education. We want our students to complete their higher educational goals, and we are you all are the best person for your position. You are there because you are the best, right? The best of the best. So just be compassionate with yourself and know that, times, may get hard, but you will get through it. And our students are our why for many of us.
Andrew?
Yeah, I want to echo all that my colleagues have said. I feel like compassion, really showing yourself kindness. I think also, yeah, like I think Yasleen said, remembering like what got you into this field. Like sometimes I'd be doing my work and I'm like, you know what? I remember this program I did in undergrad, and it was really, really connected to the work I'm doing right now. And just like thinking about back as to like why I continue in this field. I agree. Also, the students will change every year, but I think helping them achieve their goals is really the why. And just seeing them succeed and then working with them through their challenges and helping them grow. I think those are just some of the more like rewarding things that we get to see when we're interacting or working with our students, working with different partners, departments on campus. And then words of wisdom, I would say, continue to believe in yourself. I'm a huge advocate, self-confidence, knowing what you know and being able to ask for help. So continue to believe in yourself. Just know that you got this, and being able to say, hey, I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to get better. And if I'm not, then, who can I reach out to? Who's my support system?
Great, thank you. Sonia and then Andreas.
I was actually just typing it out because I am getting called into a meeting, but thank you all so much for being here. I do want to say that, your experiences always have value. So even if you are new in the field, your knowledge is important and your experiences are something that really help strengthen who you are as a professional. And so make sure that you are caring for yourself as a professional. You cannot give to others if you are not at your best yourself. And so know that you as a person also needs to be cared for. And so making sure that you embrace that part of, this labor of love and giving that to yourself and to your team if you are overseeing staff. And just know that you can always grow, right? We always can get better. And so if there are moments where you doubt whether or not you can continue or if this is really worth it, know that everyone always sometimes has that moment where you got to fake it till you make it. And that's okay because we're all growing at the same time. And so know that you have value and leverage everything that you bring to the table because it is important. And with that, I have to head out, but thank you so much, everyone. Have a good one.
Cool. I will close this off here. I would definitely say there are going to be moments where you might feel, really frustrated or just, there's a lot of emotions that go into, I guess, the type of work that we do. And I think all of them are valid. But I think just really relying and trusting in yourself and all the work and experience that you have earned to get to this point, and really trusting in your own intuition, I think is key. And I think also just finding folks on your campuses that you can talk to or vent to, or just share some space with, I think will be really critical. So I think that starts again from the very beginning of really developing that community wherever you go. So find your people, find your crew, and believe in yourself, I think is what I would say.
Great. Well, thank you to all of our panelists, Andrea, Sonia, Yasleen, Belinda, Andrew. Thank you for your insights. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your energy, your thoughtfulness, and your answers. Thank you to everyone who has been here in attendance this morning. We appreciate your time. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And a special shout out to Willie and Mario and Jen, who are part of the Careers and Student Affairs Day/month work group. Appreciate you as well. Thank you for being here and doing some work behind the scenes. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. We have other sessions going on this month, so we hope to see you there. Bye.